Hello and welcome, ladies and gents, back to the channel, or channels, respectively. We're going to be going through that of ESL Pro League Group C and D. Now, we did this for Group A and B, and so far, for the most part, we've been right. The only real notable one off the top of my head, a ton of fire going out pretty early. That was the one that we were like, we think this team will make it through. They lost, at the time of recording, like 2 hours ago, to Saw 2-0. Tough to see. But by that, for the most part, we've been pretty spot on in terms of where, like, what teams are going through, not where they're going through. You know, phase, classic phase, not showing up in the groups, or the be all and end all of phase, right? They just never show up until it matters most. But week one of Pro League Groups A and B done. We were on the B stream. Harv, how do you find it?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, it was good. It's still a few sort of teething issues and whatnot. But ultimately all good. I was cursed today. I don't know what happened. My internet kicked off. My mixer died. The mixer was kind of my fault, to be fair, because I've moved it a little bit and it just, it wasn't that much though. Yeah. I still profess it really wasn't like an aggressive movement. So I was a little bit cursed today. Next week I'm not going to be touching anything. I'm going to be static, just not moving. Yeah, same position all day long. But yeah, it's good, man. It's lovely to be on. It's a great product to be a part of. It is. Loads of Counter-Strike going on. The storylines are always fantastic in Pro League. Anyone can win it. It's got that laid-back vibe, and some of the bigger teams get caught up in that. You've just been on the other side of the world doing Chengdu or whatever. You come over here, you have a bit of a slower start, and that can be okay. Maybe if you are FaZe, maybe if you are VP, but there are a few teams in there, a G2, a Falcons, where it's like you have to hit the ground running, because otherwise, you might end up running into one of those teams that also started slowly. So it's always good fun to be part of a product like this.
Exactly that. What we can do is go straight in towards our topics about this time groups C and D. Now, similar format, similar everything to what you guys have been used to over in A and B. So we'll kind of skip all of that with the three stages. You know how it works. You get 3 chances. You get the group itself, then the mid bracket, or like the lower bracket, quote unquote, and then the last chance coming through. So in ESL, we call it the mid bracket and the last chance. HTV, we call it the lower and then last chance. So it's simple as that, right? So you get 3 lives. Nice and simple. There's obviously two spots for the uppers. Whoever makes it through, it's fine. It's just a seeding thing then for those 2 guys to make it to the upper final. 1 team makes it through the lower, and then 1 team makes it through the last chance. So 4 teams in total make it through each group, meaning in total at playoffs we'll have 16. Nice and easy. So let's get things started talking about Group C. This is for us. We will be on. For next week, we'll be on the morning game. Well, I think the morning is. We'll be on the earlier games. Yeah, like morning, 12:30. Not morning. Yeah. Esports morning. Normal, very much not morning. First game, Mal's at Bad News Eagles, and then ends Gamer Legion. Now, for coming in towards these early ones, very much done on seeding, right? Most of them are meant to be blowouts, and they're meant to be quite one-sided. And that Mal's Bad News Kangaroos should be should be a bit of a decimation. Should be.
Yeah, you would assume so. I'm gonna be real. I'll put a little bit of work in. We're casting a fair bit. I think domestically they're doing okay, but the Bad News Kangaroos guys, I don't know any of these players. Usually there is a player or two within the Oceanic region that I might recognize. Maybe it's like an old guard guy that you've seen at international tournaments doing well. But these guys, I think, behind FlyQuest, are the second team at the moment. It feels like if you just look down the run of where it's going, obviously their Challenger League is still a little bit different. They're still working on like BO1s and stuff, not straight into BO3s and things like this. But yeah, they look like a pretty solid team domestically, and credit to them. They just narrowly miss out on EWC recently to FlyQuest, but ultimately they've done well to get here. But I think that this is going to be a really tough. It's one of those types of scenarios where we look at them similar to the way that we look at Sharks when in our other groups there. Little, I don't want to say lucky getting in necessarily. Of course, it still takes a great deal of work, but unexpected for sure. Yeah, and they're going to have to work pretty hard. If they can take a map, I think is what I'm getting at here. If they can take a map off of an opponent, then maybe we'd be in. Well, no, not maybe. We would be impressed by that, especially if you run into a Mouse like this group. Actually, if they take a map off any team in this group, maybe Fours is the only one that I would look at it a little bit questioning.
Okay.
But everybody else, I'd be like, that is fair play, because they're pretty decent teams within this group.
Do you know? I think not giving that much credit. They're not a bad team. I've caught these guys on LAN a couple of times, especially the likes of Brace, Hazard, Addict. I think this was way before when I was covering this team. They were under a different name. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like ESL Challenger Melbourne last year. I think PZ was there as well. Damio wasn't. I can't remember who was in the team before. But Damio's new to me. The other 4 I've caught on LAN, working the desk. Brace the IGL. Alex, obviously, numbers-wise, you can see, is the main guy to look for. Hazard pops off when he wants to. And PZ does have his moments, but he's a little inconsistent. I think with how things currently are, I actually think they could get a map off of Fours, Monty, and Gamer Legion. That's like, but
Okay.
I think that's also probably because I also think Fours, Monty, and Gamer Legion are pretty shit right now. I think they're
Yeah.
like Monty are pretty poor. They're actually not even pretty poor. They're very poor right now. They look all over the place. It's like if Warrior doesn't drop like a 1.2 rating, they're kind of like shit in the bed. Gizmy's actually look really good, but then outside of that, it's like Ryu either drops 30 or 10 in a map. There's no in between. Like Demka can be like occasionally like non-existent, but then occasionally one of the best players in the server, and same with Krasnal. I think this team is in such flux. Monty, I honestly think they're just biding time. I don't think this is the roster they want to commit to, because if it is, I don't really think they're going to be in and around the upper echelon for a while. Fours, obviously, this is quite literally just a temporary roster as well for them. Smooya playing with Shalfie, Tanier, Celta, and Nickelback is fucking wild. Like, actually wild. How this has happened, I don't know. Why they've chosen...
Because they just play FPL with him, probably.
Yeah, but why they've chosen an English guy
desperate.
rather than like
And
a Russian guy to then like com with in a bet, you know what I mean? Like, for me, like...
Who knows?
I mean, obviously, maybe also a visa issue as well, right? It's always a kind of a classic.
I might be like making this up. This might be serious mental gymnastics going on.
Go on.
Were there rumors at one point that Smooya was going to join Fours anyway, like under Jerry? Or am I? I might.
Do you know? It doesn't actually sound the most outlandish, but from I always remember that team being.
Let's see if it's
Russian
on the news.
speaking.
I'm looking down the news. Let me give it a Control F and a Fours.
I guess.
On here,
yeah. No. I think for me, like the only thing that maybe goes against that is like just the fact that they were always Russian speaking. So, but then it goes. This team is 4 Russians and then Smooya. So I don't know. Wild. It'd be quite funny to see Smooya do well. It actually really would. Just like, this is a guy.
There's a world in which he does though, because I just don't think people will be like ready. People are not going to respect him. He's not going to respect them.
Yeah.
So I feel like that he might have like a half or two where he plays really well, and people just aren't
also
paying him any attention.
Let's be honest. He was never a bad player ever. He was actually always a very good AWPer.
Yeah.
He was just, no offense to him, at times a bit apparently very difficult to work with. Is how we'll go about it. Very difficult to work with. Is
it checks out.
Yeah, what comes out from the team. However, not that it really says a big story, but this guy, see that 1.44? He's farming Epic Lands, mate. Like Epic Land playoffs, he's dropping like 1.9s, like most finals. Yeah, I don't know. Quite interesting. Monty, I think, are in a real weird place. They are all over the place. Like I said, it's very much down to Ryu. That one, I don't think we even need to really talk about who we kind of predict there. It's like, whatever. You know what I mean? It's such a non-existent...
I've not got a clue. I can't give you a straight answer.
I would say Monty...
There is, I genuinely, in that game, I think there is a world in which Smooya just farms everybody.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Monty are going to have a bit of pressure on them to perform.
Yeah.
The Fours side, meanwhile, I think they might just have some fun with it.
Yeah,
to be honest,
exactly.
With where the temporary team is at, and Smooya's got a bit of an attitude about him. Maybe they can work with that. Some of the guys on this team are a little bit younger than him. And who knows? Smooya is having a good time streaming, decent numbers there. Don't know whether he'll come back to pro play, but this is just another sort of marketing move, isn't it? I don't think
Classic,
that's the sole reason behind it. Don't get me wrong. I think he obviously loves competing, but it will work out like that. There'll be some funny moments. He's going to try and knife some people.
Yeah.
Either that or he will just absolutely ruin everybody and we're all going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think he is like a player who can still play at like a high tier 2 level. Like I watch him play FPL. He is mechanically head and shoulders above many. I don't think there's any like conversations about that. I just think it's maybe do the teams want to like, if he is difficult to work with, that is, you know, if there's any kind of basis behind this, do they really want to take the risk on him, like maybe putting the team in a bit of flux or anything along those lines, right? It'd be cool to get an interview with him. I think like if we ever cover a Fours game and they win,
sure.
I think
I could see that.
I think of, you know, like get into and see what he says.
Well behaved. He's got to be well behaved.
Yeah, but it's not on us if he isn't. You know what I mean? So it's kind of
that is true. That is true. But like, you know, I'm not going to go into it too much. But the last Epic LAN he was at, they very nearly banned him.
Oh so, yeah, I mean I think there was an HLTV news article about that. But like mid game, for those who don't know, just context wise, mid game he just stood up and looked at the screen.
Oh yeah, there was that, but also his conduct, like as well, sort of behind the scenes. Like I'm not gonna. It's rumor mill, it's Chinese whispers, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, they were not very happy, and I know for a fact because I was there that the final was like delayed because Gump, who's like, you know,
the owner,
head honcho of tournament operations at Epic LAN, sort of, you know, took him aside and was like, listen, man, you're a patron, a paying guy like everybody else, but like, can we keep it reasonable, please? And to be fair to him, they were obviously giving it large when they won a round, but to be fair, they weren't too bad.
And they did reverse sweep, I'm pretty sure. So like they actually, like fair play. There's a bit of content. Let's talk about some real teams though. Ents Gamer Legion. For me, this looks like Ents every other week. I don't really rate this Gamer Legion team at the moment. I think there's definitely grounds there though. Slend is unbelievable. This kid is such a good talent. Like I don't think many people would kind of debate or deny that. He is like seriously good. For me, I really think he can step up. And I think Andu, since coming towards the team, has actually looked really crisp. The only issue I actually have with what I've caught, so I caught Gamer Legion in Thunderpick, I think, once, and then something else. I can't remember exactly what it was. I've caught them twice, basically, since Andu and Slend have come in. And basically, Slend, very talented, does his roles really well. Andu, very, very talented. However, Andu always looks a little lost. I don't know whether they've like not set him up into his positions properly, but he always looks like he's kind of being caught off guard or like he's being killed from behind when he thinks his teammate's holding for him. So small things like that, which, you know, I mean, I think it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since I caught them. You'd hope they'd basically spend some time practicing and getting ready for this tournament, fixing those things. We'll have to see. I think the big thing for me that I do want to see, though, is just a little bit more out of Isaac. Isaac's meant to be very important to this team in terms of the numbers department, and he's actually looked a little weak. So I do want to see him, you know, as actually technically an experienced head in this team. You know, he's more experienced than Volt and Slend, right? He's like technically the second man in terms of this team. I do want to see him try and showcase that a bit, you know, his experience and knowledge of the game. But for me, I think Ents take this pretty comfortably. This team, I still really love them. Despite the early departure at the major, I think Ents are really cool.
Yeah, and Ents are a lot of fun. They've obviously shown us a pretty high ceiling. They have to get behind Glaive. I think Glaive is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of just outbraining opponents and also outfragging, apparently, you know, for a little period there.
Yeah.
We don't see too much of Ents. They're not a super busy team at the moment. So I think that is obviously something that might get away from them. They did play off in the Sky Esports Masters. A little bit of a weird event in the end. Not a great finish for them. I'm pretty sure 7th, 8th in that. We were casting at the time, so it's a bit hard to follow. But 7th, 8th, I think, is last.
I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it was top. I think it was 8 teams, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, you know,
online
not a fantastic performance there. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it was going to be a LAN, then it was sort of online.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really know what the logistics were behind that in the end. I guess they're just playing from home, but, you know, they lose out to Forza and OG there, I'm reading here, which is not ideal. But again, playing online Counter-Strike, something, especially for Glaive, that he's not going to be too familiar with, and how to call against these kind of teams. There is a ceiling there. The only thing that I will say, actually just sort of rolling through and looking here, I think a lot of Cato comes down to the fact that it's just like hometown advantage, you know, and those four boyos really, really trying their hearts out. Players like Hades, a little bit of D-Har, but a lot Hades for me, I think, are very, very mental players. You know, I've seen Hades make some wild plays when the pressure's on, when the nerves get to him. And I think it's something that he certainly struggles with. And he's a big part of this team. Definitely moves that have got to be made for Ents for them to be impressive, in my opinion. I think they maybe have a ceiling. Maybe an event like Pro League again where... And in this group, to be honest,
do you reckon
where it is a bit more laid back, they might be able to make a little bit of a deeper run.
Okay,
I think they should make playoffs. I think they should win this game against Game of Legion. Game of Legion on the flip, to give my thoughts on them, it's like a very difficult team to really predict because as an organization, they're a smaller organization. You know, they have fingers in lots of pies, lots of different games, but generally like sort of cheaper games, if that makes sense, like a PUBG. I
or
think
like
they've got a relatively decent team. Yeah, exactly. You know, like where they have representation. Obviously, they will have made a good deal of money from stickers, but mainly just from the revenue share. I don't think that their stickers will go crazy. You know what I mean? Who's out here buying? I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but you know what I mean? Who's naming the buying the Game of Legion stickers specifically? You know, probably not too many people to be fair. There weren't a great deal of names. And compared to the Apex boys that have gone on to find great success, I think Immer, yes, he's won the major and he's a great role player, but he wasn't the best looking player. I suppose he was at the Paris major. So I don't know. Like there's a lot in the Game of Legion team, but I think what ultimately being a smaller org, they got a bit lucky. They made some decent money, but they can't just splurge all that money.
It's true.
Because they don't necessarily have a solid stream of revenue. So therefore, what you have to do, and I think they will be well versed in this, in particular, similar to an Endpoint, for example, you have to pick up some riskier players. Hope that you know, younger players that aren't going to demand as much money, not as well decorated, and just hope that you know your pieces can make it work. And a key part behind that is Ash and his sort of scouting, his ability as a coach. We, you know, all praise that video that he put out. He's obviously got a great mind for the game, but sometimes it doesn't quite work. I think, like you're saying, they look good, but not quite yet. You know, again, there's another move somewhere that has to happen, or there's a big switch within this team that has to happen. But for me, they did really well at the Paris Major, and they've just been like riding that for the past 8 months or whatever it is now, more, to be fair, like 10 months. And I don't know that they've really impressed me very much since then, to be honest.
The credit I'll give Game of Legion is, I think, you know, if you think of the 4 teams that rode the Blast Paris Major that weren't expected, so we're talking Into the Breach, Game of Legion, Apex, and Monty, I would say they're actually the best off of all the 4 now. Apex are, no offense, they are absolutely shit right now. They are like, they're horrible. They're like so rough to watch. Like, there is rumors, I can't remember who it was, Stico is being replaced. I saw it.
Oh, it might be official, you know. I swear I've seen it down.
I saw it. Yeah, maybe you are right. I sent this to my mate the other day.
I'm being chill here, so I'll give it a search and it'll be on screen. Sent? No,
Stico's being replaced.
Stico's still listed.
Yeah,
Stico's still listed on
Let me find
HLTV.
it. Let me find it. I'll get it.
So it's definitely a pretty legitimate claim.
Oh my god, who was it?
Being made.
Who was it? I'm gonna
I
find
don't think it was one of the blokes, mate. Is it not Overdrive? Is it?
No, I don't think it was Overdrive. I'm trying to find who it was. I spoke about this.
I don't think it's one of the blokes.
I'm spamming. Here you go. Ultex is set to replace Sent, and this is by actually a very like legitimate reporter. This guy's got
Stico, you mean?
Ultex is replacing Stico. Is the rumor? The rumor. I think this guy Alejandro Gomez. He's actually like pretty legit. He's got like 75,000 followers. He's like, he's a big kind of like he's not like a leaker, like a fucking Harumi, which is just like he just makes it up and just like
Overdrive guy.
Yeah, well, I think Overdrive at least has some legitimacy.
Overdrive's getting up there. He's a few rungs above, but he's still not quite a journalist.
Like Harumi just makes it up and hopes it sticks. Like at least like Overdrive, I feel like has some knowledge behind him. Or I think, you know, for the most part, he seems okay. I mean, he called like most of the Cloud9 stuff prior to it happening, but like by a day or whatever. But yeah, it's one of those. So yeah, like, you know, that's what I mean. Like, so of all the 4, back to what I was saying, Into the Breach, literally not even in Counter-Strike anymore. They've left Counter-Strike. So boom, there's one gone. Monty are all over the place, like I've already spoken about, with 2 academy guys coming through. Gizzy's actually been pretty good. Ryu is kind of like iffy. And this team just looks rough. They're pretty tough to watch. And then Apex is just shit. So like it's one of those where I think it's like actually Game Legion of the 4, like fair play. They've actually getting themselves afloat. I think a large majority of that is down to Snacks and Ash. I just think like they're just so level-headed. They're just never gonna let shit just go completely out of there. Like if changes need to be made, they'll make them. You know what I mean? Like they're very on it, very quick. And I think, you know, credit to them, like Acor is a big person to cut, right? You know what I mean? Like granted, he had his moments at the Blast Paris Major. Since then, very up and down. It's a big person to cut, but I think their idea of why they've gone for it and bringing in Slend is absolutely spot on. You know, he is this wonder kid. I said it at the start of the year in Neo's bold predictions, man. I put him like 3 or 4. Kid's mega talented. So yeah. But last one we'll talk about, Fury Liquid. Talking about shit teams. Fury Liquid. This is American derby of 2 teams who are currently on a incredibly vast downward trend. Liquid, Esports World Cup lost to M80, but obviously we know M80 at the moment, what I would say second best team in NA right now, behind Complexity, obviously. Liquid have looked pretty woeful, haven't they? I mean, Cadian doesn't look that great. Are you disagreeing?
No, I'm just looking down the results.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the EWC. Why are they playing M80 twice in a row?
Yeah, so
no other games in between.
No, so M80 played Legacy in between.
Okay.
So M80, so it went Liquid, lost to Liquid, I'm pretty sure, and then
Legacy,
beat M80, beat Legacy, sorry, in like a lower bracket, I think it was, and then it was like grand final for the 1 spot against Liquid, and then they 2-0.
Okay, well that's a bit rough. But
yeah,
that's how it goes. Credit to M80, solid comeback.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Liquid for me though, I've looked really like pretty woeful. Like you look at like the thing is, actually, I'm going to say Cadian. Like, Cadian has looked a little rough in terms of his, not only just calling, but his AWPing. But it is actually all your Kindar. Like, you hate to say it, but, like, this guy is all over the place. I don't know what's happened. He's
just lost his identity, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's having to play, we talked about this a little bit, I think, going into, was it Chengdu? Like, after we did a little Chengdu video. Yeah, he's just lost his identity. He IGL'd for a bit, which was probably like the worst career decision he's ever made, to be honest. And way too much respect from like the players on the Liquid team to let him do that. Maybe he was adamant on it. Maybe it was part of his contract somewhere that he wanted to try that, and they had to let him do it if he was going to join the team. Who knows? But now he kind of has to play everybody else's Counter-Strike. He doesn't get to play Yakindar's Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
You know? Like he was like this free reign player on VP, one of the best guys to watch in 2021 for sure.
One of the most relentless entry fraggers like in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
So fun. So fun. And after he left, like Jame obviously has tightened his grip on the sort of Jane time and all this kind of stuff. Yakindar unfortunately, you know, maybe a negative part for VP and not what Jame wanted to do, not in the vision that Jame had. And then, yeah, since joining Liquid, I don't know, it's just, we were all very excited, and then he's IGLing while, like, Nitro's still on the team. It was just a mess. It was really just a mess, to be honest. And yeah, I think he's just lost his identity, and he's kind of forgotten. Well, I don't know that it's forgotten how to play. Like, I just don't think he's allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because he's dropped down and he didn't come into Liquid and just take over. And he should have absolutely shat on the NA scene. And then when it came to the international games, you know, been a big proponent of them winning games and threatening for trophies. But they just have never had that. And I think now that the respect that he might have had coming into the team and the players that let him IGL and stuff like this, that's not there anymore. You know, if he says, "Yeah, just let me do my own thing, man. I'm crazy with it." It's like,
no, mate,
he's not anymore.
Yeah,
he's not anymore. And you've got NAF. You give your resources to the people who prove that they deserve it.
Yeah.
And he just unfortunately is not the guy anymore. So I really don't know what to make of it. Yeah,
all of his confidence is gone. I think realistically, you know, I'll bring it up on stream now, but like the recent like run of form in events. Let me, if this loads, here we go. You go events. If you look at some of them, it is like it's pretty dicey. Like Esports World Cup, fair enough. But then Chengdu, which is one of the main ones we're talking about, 0.95, tough, man. Not good. Not good at all. And then 0.76 at Blast Premier Spring. And then obviously at the RMRs, 0.98 didn't qualify as well. I mean, and then these are all open qualifiers. So I don't really care too much about them. It's tough, man. They're just not doing what this team should be doing, right? Like this is, or your Kindo individually isn't doing what he should be doing. So for me, they're in a really rough spot. It's tough. I think Scholes, I love Scholes as a player. I think he's so talented. I've loved him from the Pain days. I was so happy when he got signed from Liquid, but he looks very uncomfortable on his CT side, especially when he anchoring A Mirage, brutal. He looks so out of position, always like off the ball. So for me, it's like, what can Naf and Twists do to really, amplify this team? It's such a big ask. But then you look at Furia, and it's like, right, Furia, they've just got rid of their primary IGR. Now they've got Fallen Calling. You've got Cello, who's woefully underperforming, generally speaking. Quesarato, who's still, an incredible rifler, but has just put himself into this like kind of like, you're not going to ever win jail, right? And then Kai, wow, like seriously bad. So as Maui did a really, really good stream demo reviewing him, and just like the decision making, like it's just one of those things. He's obviously so inexperienced. Like there's no two ways about it. So out of his depth. This is a panic thing. They just needed a sub. They needed someone to stand in. They've got him. But yeah, wow. Like this is like, we talk about youngsters who come through and they're like young and then they, they have potentials. Like Decency and No Way are great examples. These youngsters who've maybe had a little bit of time on academy teams, or, in No Way's case, like streaming, right? They come through and they're sick. Kai on Fury Academy, ooh, like, I don't know, man. Like, we even watched like his like with Maui, like watched like his best game he'd had, like, which was like, actually funny enough against Imperial, and they beat them 13-11, some like mega comeback. And he got like 24 kills, and I remember 0 of them. Like it's like they're so like unimpactful and stuff. So yeah, I'm very worried about him. Like, he could really start to, put up advent numbers. That's how rough he looked. And this is like online, domestic Counter-Strike. So yeah, Furia in flux. This is obviously a very temporary change. I think if Furia was smart, they would try everything to get Big Azera. Like that'd be like the number one person they have to get Big Azera.
Fallen's not going to concede the throne, as it were.
I don't know, like.
Or even, are you saying just get Big Azera and don't let him IGL?
No, he has to IGL. He's the best IGL in the region. Like, he has to. But like, it's also can they afford him? Because I think his buyout, all the Brazilian buyouts are absolutely ridiculous. I saw one. Oh, I can't remember who it was. Some of them are absolutely insane. I mean, obviously, Fallen's was like $600K or $700K. Like, just, nuts, right? For a guy who literally the same, like 2 months before getting signed, said he wanted to retire next year. But yeah, I don't know. For me, Furia are in a really bad spot. They don't look themselves. I caught a little bit of them not that long ago. They looked all over the place. Obviously, I caught a bit of them. What's it called? Get Rio. That event was a shocker as well, has to be said. But we caught a bit of it. And not good. And Liquid, I caught them in the Esports World Cup. And again, not great. So I don't know. I don't really like. It's one of those things. I don't know who wins this. I think Liquid probably win it, but like, it's kind of like I don't really care. It's so weird. Like, it's just like I think they both desperately like actually need a break, like from events rather than playing events. They need to like fix their teams. Like I think both of them need a change.
Furia, I can give that to. I think Liquid for me have got. I'd say most of the pieces. If you can make your Kindar work, KD is a good AWPer. He is a good IGL. You've got Zeus coaching.
I think he's good. I think
I think he's obviously done great work with Liquid in the past. The 2019 Liquid, famously of Luminosity and SK, and I think into MIBR. They might have dropped him going into MIBR. I can't quite remember the timeline. I'll get it up for a second here. But yeah, I think they do have the pieces ultimately to make this work, but it just his hair's going crazy. Okay, so he was in MIBR for a while, actually. My bad on that one. But yeah, famously Luminosity SK and then into Liquid. And it was just prior to the 2019 Liquid, actually. So they kicked him and then they were sick. So, he started all that, I think, and did a lot of work with them and has helmed some great teams in the past. It's difficult, though. Coaching in NA is a real tough one. They don't have a lot of depth there. And I think it's also a role that the organizations in particular are not willing to fork loads and loads of money out for.
Yeah.
But I think Liquid have got the pieces. I think they should be able to make this work. I think with these players, with what they are capable of, given their histories, I think they should make playoffs. But I don't know that they will.
I don't know if they will.
If it was like everyone comes together at their not necessarily peak, but like 90% of their highest level, then you've got the pieces here. But it's at this current time not coming together well enough. I don't know. Therefore it's a tough project because I don't know that you make moves because they'll all be sat here like, but your Kindar when I was playing 3 years ago, bearing in mind they've all been playing professionally like 5+ years easily, apart from schools. There's enough history here for them to try and wait it out.
I think the run from like not making it to the major through the RMRs, through the Americas RMRs as well, is like, okay, whatever. And they actually lost to Fury in that as well. And then, not making it through that. Obviously, the Americas RMR, the format was quite rough because it was either them or Complexity, which obviously was quite tough. And it was like a 3-mapper. It was kind of quite a banging series. And then Blast Showdown where they lost to Saw, and it was like, what the hell is going on here? Then Chengdu, fair enough, beat G2, but then lose to Mao's. It's like a kind of a nothing series, and lose to FaZe. Took a map off them, but then FaZe ended up winning the event. So I guess we can give them the caveats, but it's still, for me, it's like they beat teams that are like okay, whatever, you know what I mean? Like RMR, they're beating teams like Bestia and Boss, but then I still just think like there's just no, like, they don't look at the moment like they play like a tier 1 team, and that's what it worries me. I think in this Furia game, I still think they should be able to beat them. And I do actually want Liquid to do well. Liquid was actually technically the first team I ever supported. This is back in like the Stewie 2K days. But yeah, I don't know. I watched that whole M80 series, and it was tough to watch. So yeah, we'll see what happens. They're in a bit of a weird spot. Let's talk about moving on towards Group D though. We'll move on here for now. So Complexity, Para, NIP, Heroic are the first ones. I mean, I think Complexity, Para sort of writes itself. Para on LAN haven't really proven anything. Obviously made it through.
We'll see.
Pro League
they could be one of these huge. Yeah, sorry. It could be one of these dark horse teams, though. I think
you reckon?
Like they could be a team that you overlook a little bit. Yeah, just in the case of like, you have to pay them their respect.
Fair.
And they'll also be a team, I think, of guys, a few young guys here looking to really prove themselves. So I think that you do have to just be a bit careful playing off against them. Really, it's a wild mix of teams, a wild mix of cultures. So I think that they could be a very sort of loose, fast, enjoying themselves kind of team. I want to say as well, if it is a conference qualification, that Bibu and holy hell, Chio Cardao maybe?
It's a name, isn't it?
They surely will not have qualified with them.
No, they didn't.
In conference, right?
It was conference.
So they're a recent addition.
It was, they had...
Well, the conference equivalent is like the national qualifier, EPL qualifier, national competition.
Yeah, wasn't it us who did it? I know I did it.
Yeah,
it was
like back in January.
Yeah, it was like with Damion and
ESL Pro League Season 19 NC Europe
National
qualifier.
Championships. Yeah,
National Championships.
It was with Damion and I forget the other guy now. I forget the other guy who was in this team. Yeah, not like this team's just kind of average. You know what I mean? Like.
MSN was the other guy.
MSN, that's it. I knew it was like, so I knew it was 3 letters, but my brain just kept saying DGL. It was right in front of me. I was like, I know it's not DGL. Complexity should be light work. I'm actually really looking forward to Complexity's event. I think they should make a deep run, and through this group as well, I think they should finish top 2 without a doubt. It's just whether they can actually beat Na'Vi in the groups. I think it'll be between them and Na'Vi. So I think they may light work at that.
Yeah,
NIP Heroic. I think this NIP team, obviously, it's very like new-ish. It's kind of in flux. I'll give NIP a lot of credit though. They've actually been playing online Counter-Strike. So this is the thing, and same with Big, right? Like, I mean, even though I really think this Big team is like, bang average. I think like NIP play a lot of Counter-Strike, so I actually give them a lot of credit. Like, fair play. Like, they've actually been trying to like test this team in online tournaments. It's a bit of a weird team though. Blue Phoenix is playing, and obviously right now Rez is out because he's got some viral infection that they were saying. So they're bringing in ex-Casper Sky. I can't remember the exact team he's on. I've cast this guy a bunch of times.
Is this guy Young Ninjas?
No, I swear
that's of April 2024.
No,
so
he played on another team. I've cast this guy before. It must be on Wikipedia. Let me hit the Wikipedia real quick.
Also, is this guy? So his name is Casper.
Yeah.
Right. You know, Casper Sky, or I guess some people say Kaspersky, which is like the.
Isn't it like an it's like
an antivirus?
Antivirus, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
My guy's just named himself after an antivirus. That is baller as hell. Obviously, it's his own name as well. Like, it's a crossover, but that's pretty funny that he's like, just seen Kaspersky. I'm sure it's Kaspersky is the way that you're supposed to say it, but
you reckon? This guy defo played another team. It was like one of those Polish teams, like Honoris or like PGE Toral or one of them. Right?
Maybe. I mean, he's only 17, so you might be Mandela affecting yourself a little bit.
I'm not. I'm actually 100% sure. Like I know for a fact he played on one of them.
Bloke, if you say so.
PG Toral. There we go. PG Toral. That's what he played on. Yeah, because I've casted him, and I know I haven't casted Young Ninjas in like yonks. So yeah, PG Toral is who he played on. I know actually the reason I know that he was in one of the qualifiers. That's why I'm pretty sure I saw him in one of those. Okay. One of the open quals. But they didn't make it that far. I think actually PG Toral were the team who lost to Viperio, who then qualified to the Blast Paris Major, or to the RMR. So, but yeah, I don't think he was in that one. But yeah, this kid's actually alright. He's pretty talented. He's just he's a rifler. There's no two ways about it. I don't know what he'll do at this event. I think expectations for us for NIP are going to be very, very low, right? Yeah. Because you've lost arguably your best player, quote air quotation marks.
Yeah.
I actually think Maxter's got a lot of talent. This is a guy who should be playing, in my opinion, at the tier 1 level anyway. Wrinkle, I've always loved Wrinkle. I think he's very good. He was in one of my bold predictions videos last year. I think he was in. Very talented AWPer. Definitely deserved the opportunity. He's been at 2 RMRs now and failed to make the major. But this team's, I don't think, going to do all that much. Heroic should have a bit of a whale of a time in that one. It shouldn't be that hard. I think, Nerds and players like that will have an absolute field day. Kixan should outcall Alex every day of the week. It should be fine, basically. But I actually do expect big things out of Heroic in a positive note. I think this side, for me, they have a bit of a ceiling, maybe, but Nerds is so talented. Tessas and Shush are still looking actually pretty good in terms of their roles. The only actually caveat I have with Heroic is I think Nicholas as an AWPer, just specifically an AWPer, is actually looks very uncomfortable. As a rifler, I think he's actually pretty good. But as an AWPer, I think he's like really uncomfortable. And he looks kind of like, he just doesn't like, he feels like he doesn't really play it right when he's AWPing. When he's rifling, he's like sick. So I don't know. That's the only caveat I have with this Heroic team. And I think Heroic's been, Nicholas has been kind of like an underperforming AWPer for like ages. So
it's true.
Yeah,
it is true.
He is just like, I think he like, Copenhagen Flames tier 2, sick. Stepping into tier 1, yeah, no, like you're not going to be given that much space, that much time.
Yeah, I mean the Copenhagen Flames days, very different time. A bit of a vibes kind of team, to be honest, and they played very well online. Actually, were really inconsistent online at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think Heroic are a good team. They have some nice pieces here. I like Kixon as an IGL. We're all about the young IGLs.
Yeah.
Nertz is obviously a monster. I just don't know. It's the other bits around him. Tessis is stepping up a little bit, but they just don't really have anything that's super exciting for me. Beyond that, it was obviously due to the circumstances, due to the stabby gate. They had to put something together, and Heroic are obviously working as well. I think a lot more on the brand identity. I know that they have a Dota team that's doing quite well at the moment, and just trying to expand and build and They're focusing a lot on community. We know Tom,
Mm.
Sneaky Beaky, shout out one time, who does all
For
the
the real
community
ones,
stuff, and
my goat.
yeah, of course, lovely guy,
Yeah.
and it's popping off for Heroic in that sense. So I think that they've uh, scrapped a team together. Nikodos is the big one that stands out, but I think that Tessis and Shush were maybe backbone players for the old Heroic, but they weren't
Sure.
necessarily super impressive. They weren't the guys that would take over a game.
Mm.
So I don't know. There's a clear ceiling. They should do well here in groups, and we'll see. We'll see. They gave us a decent look at the major, but
Yeah.
then Chengdu was a letdown, if I'm remembering correctly, or am I making? Yeah, they were at Chengdu.
Yes. Yeah.
So a decent look at the major, and I think performing a little bit better than a lot of people expected because they were not really together all that long going into the major cycle. With these new players. It had only really been a couple of months. You could maybe call it 3. But Chengdu much more disappointing there. So I might as well just open it at this stage and go to where they finished off 7th, 8th.
It's not terrible,
But
but it's not great.
it's not terrible. But with the other teams that were in, I think they would want to place a bit higher than a VP and a Liquid to kind of show that they are capable of throwing it with the big boys, really. So we'll see. Time may lead to improvements for this team, but I don't know. I think that they will forever be like an extremity team, forever be battling for a top 10 slot rather than a best in the world slot as they were at one point in the online era.
True.
So,
However, in
yeah.
this group, I think in my opinion, I'd say they're the third strongest. Like, I would probably.
I think that's fair. That's not controversial.
Yeah, I'd probably say
it
it
goes
goes.
shit group though.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say it goes complexity, Na'Vi, heroic, and then that fourth spot. I think, in my opinion, is between Big and FlyQuest, and I'd actually probably give it to FlyQuest. I think FlyQuest probably need I think they need a change, but they can't. Right? Like unfortunately, I think Alistair needs to be like not removed. I think he has just looked. By his standards, not really that great, but there's no other AWPers in the region. And realistically, like, what AWPer is going to move from Europe or an NA or like anywhere to Australia? Probably no one. So they don't have, it's slim pickings, right? I would assume most Australian people would agree with me on that one. I do actually like this team though. I think FlyQuest are quite cool. I think they should be able to do okay here. I hope they can do okay here because obviously they are the kind of representative from their part of the world. We talk about NA getting bad pracs. These guys get it much worse. It's pretty tough, man. It's pretty tough. So they really do try and make the most of it whenever they are, out here, basically. But yeah, for me, Na'Vi top this group. I think they should be fine. Complexity second, Heroic third, and I'm probably going to give it to FlyQuest as that last chance, like fourth team. I think it'd probably be between them and Big, but I don't know. I keep watching Big and I just keep being like so underwhelmed. There's like Crimbo is quite good. Tabson is quite good. But then like I watched them recently and Searson was like all over the place. Like actually in all fairness, the last cast I did of Big, JDC actually farmed. But it was like such a silent farm that I didn't even realize he was farming. He was like just getting like, like low key like impact kills, like 2Ks on exits or whatever. And you're like, okay, sick. And at the end he's like, oh, JDC finished on 26 kills. You're like, oh shit, what the fuck? Like, where did this come from? But yeah, I don't know. I'm not that impressed with Big just yet. I think obviously maybe give them a bit more time, but they do work really hard with this team. They're always boot camping as well, which I think is a really good thing. But I'm still not sold on them just yet. They're sticking to this like German thing. They've been trying for a long time. Yeah, it's not been working for a long time. When was the last time they were like sick? Like 2019? 2020, like online era.
In the early online era.
Yeah, they were like...
They were number one in the world with like Zantares.
Exactly. Farming. But
in that summer.
It was so fun to watch and then it's kind of gone downhill since then. I think I'm like, as much as I actually quite like Mantu, I think it was the right thing getting rid of him. So they go back to German comms. Like it was like, what's the point being a German team on English comms?
I think he might have spoke German.
Nah, commed in English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, commed in English.
I know that Mantu's lineage is like all over the place in it.
Yeah, Polish origin, but like English raised, I think is like what him. And he might have a bit of German in him, but what I got told is like they 100% like calmed in English basically, but then I think like when he died, they were like switched to German in one of those classics.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those where for me, I don't know what I feel about Big. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna go.
Sure.
Mine. I'm gonna go. Navi complexity, heroic, and then FlyQuest. Over in Group C as well. I kind of didn't even touch on this, but I'll probably go Mal's number 1, Ents number 2, but actually kind of awkwardly because of their side of the bracket, they might actually end up going through number 3, like through the lowers. I think Mal should go all the way through for the top, and then on the other side, probably Liquid. So like Mal's, Ents, Liquid, and then that 4th team, I would probably. Honestly, I'd be tempted to give it to Game Legion. I'm actually quite worried about Furia with Kai. So, yeah, I'd actually be tempted to give it Game Legion.
I can go with that. I can agree with that. I don't think that's all that controversial.
Yeah, Game Legion or Furia.
An order.
But I want to say Game Legion just maybe because Furia sometimes they just like don't really show up occasionally. I get Rio, they look quite rough as well with this Kai guy. So, we shall see. Should we finish off with a little bit of fantasy?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw some thoughts in the big ring, as it were. I think that you talk about like the German committal. I think that's a bit of a weird thing at the moment. They've got to be like the last bastion of it. Obviously, they had a bit of time there where they were common away in English, but in terms of same nationality, or well, not necessarily same nationality, but teams that don't com in English seems to be the way that it works out. Obviously we've got like American teams, we've got Australian teams and whatnot, but it seems like pretty much everybody is bringing in some international talent where they can, especially big organizations in Europe. So I feel like that's got to be a move. There's this sort of Rolodex of players as well. Searson's been in and out. JDC never in, but might not have been like their first choice. So it's a weird looking team. It's a shame. Tabson at one point for me was one of the best anchor players in the world, and he's just been maybe a bit wasted.
If he went international, top 10 rifle of all time. I've always said that. I've always threw it out. If he actually left big and went and played at like, I'm going to say just like, not that it was ever going to happen, but like a phase or like, one of them like big international teams from the get-go.
Even like Liquid when they're looking outside,
genuinely,
for moves.
I think he could have been a top 10 rifle of all time. I think he Case Rato'd himself kind of thing, right? Similar thing to Case Rato. I mean, Case Rato, is ability-wise he's a top 20 rifler basically every year, but he just holds himself back by sticking with his region. And he's probably living very comfortably. There's no two ways about it. Comfortable. It's probably like there's no real pressure on him because he always just does his thing. Like he's never letting anybody down. But it gets to a point now. Is it worth it? If you want to win, I don't think you can stay in these national teams. I just don't think you can. I think you have to go international now.
Yeah, definitely feels that way. I'm happy to jump into fantasy. To be fair, I think that'd be a nice little thing to.
Should we start with yours?
Yes, I believe I've got mine. This should be mine. Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Yeah, can do, man.
Talk me through it.
All right.
Why have we got it?
Alexi B, mainly for the Navi angle. Trying to grab a decent team. I didn't want to go too deep on any one team here.
Sure.
Maybe that is kind of the meta. I feel like the last team did okay. We are obviously casting it, and I don't get super deep into the fantasy at this point. So like boosters and things I missed out on. There's still actually a game left to go technically that Mezzi from my team and I believe Spinks from your team still going to be taking part in. But yeah, so Alexi B, I went with the Navi angle ultimately, and you need a bit of an IGL. And I like him. Again, I did this last time. I vote a little bit with my heart. I think he's a baller. I've always thought he was cool. I did think he was a little bit fraudulent, and maybe we'll see in the coming months if that's going to be the case or not. I mean, credit, the flowers have to be given after a major win for sure. But yeah, just standing up on the desk and helicopter in his jersey, throwing it into the crowd. He's a great guy. He's a great guy, and just very, very cool. Maybe it's because he's Finnish and he's reserved, but. To me, it seems like, to be fair, he's actually got mad drip. I did follow him on Instagram afterwards. I'm getting a bit into my fashion recently, and he knows what's up. He knows how to style himself.
Yeah.
Twists, more of a logical, more of an academic choice.
Yeah.
With the headshot machine role. He's a fragger. He's a monster. Liquid looked decent for me in Chengdu. They started off strong, didn't they, in the groups?
They did. G2
made it through.
They beat G2 in the best of 3, and they beat somebody else in the best of 1 at the start.
Yeah. But I think were they one of the first teams to get locked in for playoffs? I think something like that.
I think so. And then and then they played against Miles, lost 2-0, and then lost FaZe 2-1.
Yeah. They didn't make it to the semi skip, as it were.
Both those are very good teams, right? They're like 2 top 5 teams basically. So it's actually respectable teams to lose to.
For sure. So I think Liquid as a whole might struggle here. There's bits and pieces. Twist was a big part of why they did well at Chengdu. So, pick him up, and I think they should still make it through their group there. Nikodos is the main AWP. It's kind of a monetary thing. You got to get a bit of an AWPer in there. I actually, on my last team, didn't go for an AWPer, but I think with this one, you sort of have to farm it a bit. I do believe the meta, and we did talk about this a little bit, actually isn't to give the main AWP tag. Because,
it seems to hit really low.
Yeah, they don't really activate it very much. I think the KPR with an AWP is actually quite high, especially in CS2. Where there's a few less rounds to get that done in. But whatever. Get Nikodos in there. AWPer. Hopefully he'll deliver, but we'll see. Maybe his numbers will just be good because Heroic do well. Then the noob. It's got to be somebody.
Hopefully he doesn't deliver.
Nickelback. Hopefully. But, it's a bit savage of a role to give. Nickelback was actually bare cheap. I think maybe because the team itself is not going to do that well. But he was like, 170, the lowest number. We had a little look alongside the PZ guy from Bad News Kangaroos. So that felt quite cheap to me. And then it allowed, ultimately, it's a big facilitation. 2 IGLs in the same team is maybe a little bit wacky, but, fours might make a run. You never know. But it's a big facilitate for Jim Fat.
Yeah.
And it is Jim, as far as I'm aware. We've gone over... what did I watch? Snake and Banter with is it Robu Johns?
I know who you mean. Yeah.
He's like Finnish commentator, Finnish expert. Done a few of the Elisa lands and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's like the Finnish caster basically, right? Yeah.
Lovely guy. Got a great following on the YouTubes and all that sort of stuff. So do forgive me for not remembering his second name. I want to say it is Johnson, which feels a little wild as a finisher. But anyway, we're not talking about him. He confirmed on Snake and Banter that Finnish people would say Jim Fat.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more like Jim Fat, like a bit of an accent on it.
Yeah.
But he also is a proponent of just calling him Jimmy, which is a little nickname that some of the commentators, particularly Harry, have given.
Mm-hmm.
But he is gaming. Mouse
big time.
Should make a deep run. And this guy on the rifle, for me, if he carries on, he's like top 3 rifle of the year, probably top 5 player of the year. If he carries on playing like this,
averaging like nearly a 1.2 in like big events, just in general. But obviously, only really plays big events. It's actually crazy how consistently good he's been.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to get him in, and hopefully he delivers alongside the rest of Mouse. But again, Pro League, as we've seen, you never really know.
It's true. It's true.
All right, what about you, man?
I'll move on to mine. So I started mine with basically just having to get Nerds in. I love Nerds. I always want him in. I just think he's very, very solid. I didn't want to give him this because he doesn't do it as much. But the thing he activates most on was entry fragging. But as a lurker, you're like, okay. Like, he doesn't always entry, but I guess he just lurks and he must get like a lot of early kills.
First kill.
Yeah, the first kill. You know what I mean? So for me, Nerds get in. Xerxes was actually quite cheap. And I think Xerxes is a very solid player. I just think he's always like, maybe, Yimfa outshines him in a lot of instances, but I think he's actually just very, very solid. I think Maus should go through like no bother. I think in their group, it feels so easy for them to go through. So I wanted to put like a lot of like reliance on Maus. Hence why I also went Shuhei as well, put him on leader. I don't think they'll lose in my mind. I just think they're just so solid. They're so reliable time after time. And this is a Maus side that basically they make it as deep as FaZe go and then lose to FaZe. If it isn't for FaZe, they keep going. Sure. That's as simple as that. Like, if FaZe aren't there, Maus seem to be okay. It's basically how it goes. And I just think they're just really good. Xerxes, eco-friendly was actually the one he activates most on. I might be tempted to change that and put him on like CT, because I think he has pretty decent CT rolls.
Can't change it now, mate. It's on record.
It's true. It's true. Maybe I just keep
making no changes.
I'll keep it on eco-friendly. Why not? I feel like that actually doesn't activate that much. If you look at it, it says like 2844 is what it says. Like activations of big to small. But
I don't know what the meta is. I don't know if you should focus big activations or small activations.
Because I was thinking about putting on support, right? Which is 10% big activation, but 62% small. So at least like a small one's pretty good. But then defenders, when I was on about 2131, it feels like relatively like okay. It's weird, man. I don't know what's like the best way to go about it. But maybe I do go support because I feel like at least in my mind, that's a role that I can understand. As someone who's not really like that big of a I'm not really like a fantasy person that much. I don't really do boosters. I just pick the team and like enjoy seeing how well I did. I did okay in groups A and B. I got like top 22% or something with no boosters. So I'll take that all day. I had like 2 guys of like 100 points. We'll take it. But yeah, I'm actually going to change it to support just for the sake of like, it's a role that makes sense to me. He throws a lot of supporting util.
Fair enough.
He allows Yimfat to get active. I don't really know eco-friendly, like how that activates. Is it just maybe using an SMG? Or is it just when he gets kills against pistols? I don't know, man. I don't know how it works. But so support makes most sense in my mind. Then I've gone for wonderful, and this is what we were talking about the activation. Again, another thing don't really know about. I put wonderful on attacker here, not on main orb, even though obviously he is the primary orber.
You might be right.
I don't know how this works. So on attacker, 40% activation big, 42% activation small. On orb, 15 activation big, 62% small. So I don't know whether the play here is like guarantee trying to get as much like small, just consistent small activations here, or if it's trying to push for the big ones. I don't know, but essentially, regardless, attacker feels like quite good. It's based on his T-side rating. Na'Vi a very decent T-sides, generally speaking, and he's also just like a very good player. And then even if he does get kills with the AWP as well, on the T side, it helps towards that activation. So for me, I'm just going to go attacker here because it feels like it's like kind of like playing the best of both, 40% for both. And then, of course, the last one, like you said, Nickelback, put him on noob. He's the cheapest one. It was him or PZ, and I think I had $2,000 spare. The only change I probably would have made is potentially with that $2,000 spare is like someone else's assertion. But then I was like, actually, I think Mouse should go flawless through the groups here. So I'm just going to play off the back of hoping they don't lose, and I should be fine. So a lot of this comes down to, I think Na'Vi should win their group. Wonderful should do well. I think Mouse will win their group. Mouse do well. And then also, I think Heroic will make it through, but judging on where they are, they might actually have to go into the third rung, like the mid bracket, I think, or whatever it's called, to do it. And then Nickelback, it was him or PZ. Like we said, Fours can maybe scrape a win. They could beat Monty. They could, smooth your pop off, but he doesn't really get that many kills, bless him, Nickelback. He's not really there for the numbers. So yeah, that's mine. I did okay in groups A and B without any boosters. So I think maybe, if I was like in a league with a bunch of people, I would like take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? But like, until I understand what's going on, I'm not really going to take it that seriously. Until I feel a need to, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, but there we go. I think that's it. More or less done and dusted. Groups C and D start on Tuesday. We'll be on the B stream for basically the first game every day, and then every other day the first and second game. So come catch us on the B stream. While you're doing your work, I know you're not actually going to be working. Put on your second monitor. You want to come support the boys. We'll be there 12:30 B stream every single day starting. And then every other day, also the second game as well. So you're going to come join us. Come join us. Should be a good time. But any final words, Harp, before we call it?
No.
Nice and easy. Thank you for joining us, people. Always a pleasure. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care.